Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to share with you today my birth story for my firstborn. This happened in 2017. This baby is now 4 years old, so old. I am still very pregnant with our one coming in June, so this is not my, pregnancy, had baby birth story. This is my birth story for my firstborn. And I'm excited to share it. I've never shared it on this channel before. And this birth is so different than the one I'm planning for this one. So I'm excited to share it with you. This birth, I knew I wanted to do naturally. I just had it in my mind. I thought about the idea of a home birth, but it was my first. I had no idea how I was gonna labor. My mom had 9 kids, but all of them C-sections. So I had no clue how, even in our gene pool we labored, because hers were all scheduled. So I just didn't want to risk that. I wanted to be in a hospital setting where I knew if something went wrong, or if I couldn't labor very well and couldn't go natural, I could have a C-section or an epidural or something if I wanted it. So that's why I chose to birth this way. But because I knew I wanted to do natural, I decided to take a natural birth course. I took the Bradley method course. I would highly, highly recommend it. I learned so much about the birth process. I learned how to advocate for myself, and I just really, really loved it. I'll do another video on that later, but that is really what helped me achieve the natural birth that I was hoping to have, which I very much did for this first birth. So I will go ahead and start the story from Thursday night. She was born on Friday night, so I will start from Thursday night because that's when my first contractions started happening. So my husband, he used to play soccer. And so on Thursday night, he had a soccer practice and he was out at that. I was just putzing around the house. I was doing a load of laundry and I got what I thought was bad gas. I was like, oh my gosh, why am I so gassy? I just kept feeling like I had bad gas. And then I went to the bathroom and I had a little bit of blood and I was like, this is so weird. I guess I need to call the doctor in the morning, make sure everything's okay with the baby. Had no clue that this was the start of contractions or the start of labor. Literally, I just thought it was bad gas. So then I went to bed that night. Dan got home eventually, probably 11 p.m., hopped in bed, and I was like, I think something might be happening. I've had a little bit of blood and I should probably check it out. He's like, yeah, you should probably check that out in the morning, make sure baby's okay. So that night, went to bed. I was up every hour going to pee because I had this pressure, these gas pains that would wake me up and that I would have to pee because I was awake. So I was up every hour with this, thinking why are these gas pains so bad, right? What is going on? Again, not knowing I was in labor at all, just assuming it was gas pains because it was 2 days before my due date. And everybody tells you with your firstborn that you're gonna go late. You're gonna go 2 weeks late. It's gonna be don't even expect to have baby early. So I was of the mindset that I was gonna be late. Baby was still a week away at this point. So the fact that I was 2 days early, 3 days on Thursday night, I was like, this can't be baby yet. So I woke up, there was still blood that morning and I was still having these gas pains and Dan was like, you know what? Call the doctor. I didn't want to necessarily because I knew they'd want to check me and I didn't want to be checked. I had no cervical checks this whole pregnancy or during labor or anything. And because from what I had learned in that class. So I didn't want to check. I knew that if they checked me and they told me I was 4 centimeters dilated, or I could be that way for another week and I'd get my hopes up and I just didn't want that. But Dan convinced me. He was like, you need to go. You need to make sure baby's okay. So I went to the doctor that morning and they checked baby's heartbeat. That was fine. But because I didn't want them to do a check, there was there's really nothing we can do to tell you. Baby's heartbeat's fine. These gas pains you're having are probably contractions. It sounds like you might be losing your mucus plug. You're probably gonna have baby within 24 to 72 hours. I was like, oh my gosh, so exciting. Baby's not here yet. Maybe these are slight contractions, but in the next couple days, we're gonna have baby. So the doctor that I had to go to, the normal office, it was 10 minutes from my house, but he was at a different location, my OB was. So I had to drive 30 minutes to get to that doctor's appointment, and I had a good friend who lived nearby. So I decided to go to her house right after. It was like on my lunch break from work. So I went to her house right after, was talking to her, like telling her the exciting news, like, oh, I'll probably have a baby within a couple days. It'll be right around my due date. Can't wait. He thinks I'm having contractions, but I can talk through them. Like, oh my gosh, I'm having one now, but I'm talking through it. And it was just like so exciting. Then I decided, it was like 3 o'clock. I needed to get home because I had some work to finish before the weekend. This was a Friday. And so I drove home, and it was a 30-minute drive home. And I remember I had 3 contractions in the car. So that means that they were like about 10 minutes apart. So 10 minutes apart at that point at about 3:30 that day. And it's funny because even though they were like 10 minutes apart, I still wasn't convinced that like Friday that day was the actual day. I was still thinking like 72-hour mark. So like 3 days away, like day after due date. I had no clue. But so I got home, it was probably about 3:30ish, talked to Dan, told him about the heartbeat. He, was really excited too, and had some minor contractions working, but nothing crazy. I remember talking to my boss. I got back online. He was like, oh my gosh, you were gone from lunch. Like, you didn't come back right away. I thought it was like time. And I was like, no, I just made a little pit stop. But back, and it was just a false alarm, like probably in the next few days. I like remember telling him that, and then things just went so differently. But at 5 o'clock, shut off the computer for the weekend, and Dan and I took a walk. We always went on walks, at that time. We went on one every single night. So we went out for a walk. We usually just like walked the neighborhood, and as we were walking, I just kept feeling like I had to pee. So these like little pains, these contractions, like I kept just feeling like I wanted to pee. I wanted to be like near a toilet. So as we're walking, my parents lived nearby us at that point, like 6 minutes walking. They lived like 1 street over and down a street, so like 3 streets probably total. Took 6 minutes to walk to their house at that time. And so as we were walking on the way back, I was like, I need to stop by my parents. I don't think I can make it 5 more minutes to get home to pee. Like I really have to pee. So stopped by my parents. It was about 5:30 probably at this time. And I went to the bathroom. It was actually my brother's birthday celebration that night. So we were having a make your own pizza night at 7 p.m. that night. And I didn't want to stick around the house because I knew like these were contractions. I didn't know if it was going to be that night that we had baby or not, but the contractions were getting harder. And I didn't know how long I was going to be able to mask them like in my facial expressions. So I didn't want to stick around the house. I didn't want people asking me questions. I didn't want them like being like, oh, you contractions started? Like, when's the baby coming? Like those two. I wanted to be like by myself. But it's funny because we thought we were going to be back later that night. My childhood dog, Daisy, was home, and I was like, let's just take Daisy home with us. We'll take her on a little walk and then bring her back for the pizza party. So we're walking the dog home, and it's like 5:30, and it took probably 30 minutes to get home walking. That, like, it was only a 5-minute walk, but it probably took 30 minutes to get home because I had to stop so frequently to like breathe through a contraction. So by the time we got home, it was like 6 o'clock, and things were rough. Like at this point in my body, it was like clear this was the night for baby. But in my mind, I was like, I have a pizza party tonight at 7. I don't want to miss that. Like, I want to make sure we get to that. Like, baby's not coming yet. I want to see my girlfriends, like blah, blah. And Dan was just like, you cannot walk or talk through contractions right now. Like, we are not going to a pizza party. We're not going to have girls' night. Like, you're having a baby. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to text my friends. I have to tell them I'm not coming. Like, still had the dog with us. Like, didn't know what I was going to. Hadn't told my parents yet. Like, just, it was just like almost denial. Like, what is happening? Like, I just didn't know what to do. And at that time, my contractions were all over the map. I had, a contraction that would be 6 minutes apart, then an 8, then a 4, then a 10. So there was just all this scale. It didn't seem like they were consistently like getting closer. It was like they would get closer and then they'd move farther away. And, that class I took from the textbook, things should be, contractions should get longer and harder, but closer together, not be so sporadic and all over the place. So I was waiting for them to get more consistent, like on like a nice curve or something, before I thought I was actually like in active labor or something. Like, I had no clue. And by 6:15, things were bad. Like, I was up and down from the bathroom because I kept feeling like I had this urge to pee. Like I just was all over the place. Dan was trying to make me like pillows and trying to help me move different positions, and I just didn't know what I wanted. Like I was so uncomfortable. I thought I was going to throw up. I thought I was going to pee. I thought I was going to move here. Like I just didn't know what I was going to do. The poor dog was like so confused, like had no idea what was going on, would follow me to the bathroom. Dan eventually called my brothers to like come pick up the dog because it was like a little bit ridiculous. And then my brothers, they were like, oh, what, you want us to take him? Like you're gonna take a nap before the party? I was like, no, I'm having contractions, I'm in labor. And they went home and told my dad, and then he's like, what, how far apart are they? And I was like, I don't have time for this, like I'm in pain. But like, yeah, things got really hard, really tough, really fast. Dan was trying to help. He kept asking me after each contraction, he was like trying to log them in our app. And he kept asking me like, okay, well, how hard was that one? Was it mild? Was it? And I was like, stop it. Like, don't talk to me. Don't ask. So he eventually like turned that setting off and stopped asking and just timed the contractions. But by like 7, I was like screaming. Like it was so painful. I didn't know what to do. I was trying to labor at home as long as possible because I didn't want to be restricted by the hospital. Like I know once you get there, like, you know, they don't let you eat. You can't walk around as much because they want to do fetal monitoring. Like I wanted to labor at home as long as possible because I wanted to avoid those things. That was just not the type of birth I wanted to have. I wanted to be able to move if I wanted. I wanted to be able to eat for energy. Like I just wanted to be in my own space and not restricted. So I was trying to do things as good as I could, like at home for as long as I could. And since the contractions never got like consistent and close and like what I thought they were supposed to be like, I was scared to go in because I was like, what if I get there and I'm only 1 centimeter and they turn me away? And then I don't know what I'd do because I wanted this natural pain-free birth. And if it's already this bad and I can't take it, then I'm never gonna like make it. I'm gonna have to get the epidural. And I guess that's fine because I can't take it anymore. And I was just like having this crisis. And by 7:30, I was like, Dan, I have to go in. I can't take it anymore. I'm in so much pain. I want the epidural. Like, let's go. So he called the doctor. We didn't have my dang doctor's number. Like, we only had the office number. So we called the office, but it was after hours. So we had to call the on-call doctor, which was fine. But she called back because she didn't answer right away because it was on call. So she called back and was like, tell me the situation. Dan was like, well, they're like 3 to 5 minutes apart. They're like 30 seconds to 60 seconds long, but we don't know if we should come in. Like, you know, it's our first one. She was like, well, that's still like decent. You know, it just depends on how much pain she's in. Well, at that moment, like I was going through a contraction and she heard me in the background and was like, yeah, I think you better come in. So Dan was like, all right, Hattie, like, come on, it's time to go. And he was like, I'll get the bags, I'll get the car, meet me out front. So I was like, okay. But like right before leaving, I was like, I feel like I might have to poop. So I went to the bathroom and I remember like trying to go to the bathroom, feeling like something was gonna come out, but then it like went back up again. So I was like, oh, I can't go. So then like went and met him at the door. You know, come to find out, like retrospect, I was pushing. That was the baby. Like I could have had baby at my house. But anyway, so we get in the car at 7:45. 7:45, we're rushing down. I remember getting on the highway. Dan had given me an applesauce pouch, like to try to give me some energy before we got to the hospital and I wasn't gonna be allowed to eat. I threw I ate it real quick. I threw it down on the ground and was like, I have to poop. And Dan was like, he told me later, he was like, I heard that and I knew baby was coming and I went as fast as I could down the highway. So it took about 15 minutes to get there. We left at 7:45. We got to the hospital about 8. Dan dropped me off at the lobby so that I didn't have to walk when he parked the car. He dropped me off at the lobby, put me in a wheelchair, put our suitcases there, and then left to park the car. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there, and in the car ride, actually things had died down a bit. Looking back, I now know I had gone through transition at home, and in the car, I was like on a little break, you know, that break between transition and when you start pushing. So the car ride actually wasn't bad because I've heard those bumps and stuff can really get to you in labor. So it actually wasn't that bad for me. But once I got to the hospital in the wheelchair, I was like, oh boy, it's getting hard again. So I had a contraction as I was sitting there and some random nurse in the lobby came over and was like, I'm gonna bring you up to labor and delivery. And I was like, I can't, like my husband, he's not here yet, he's parking the car and I can't leave our suitcases. He was like, I'm gonna leave him here. Someone will tell your husband we went up, we're gonna go now. So he wheeled me up. I got to the check-in desk. They were like, okay, like your name. Right as like they're asking my birthday, I have a contraction. I like had the contraction and then very calmly was like, my birthday is here. And they were like, okay. So they're like, all right, well, we'll get your husband to register you. You go in the room. So I'm like walking in the room and I was like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to pee. The girl was like, okay, that's perfect because we need a tox screen. We'll need a urine sample. Go ahead and, you know, leave that there. So I'm on the toilet and I was like, oh, I can't pee. I just have to poop. And the lady was like, honey, I think that sounds like baby. Why don't you come out, like get your pants and shoes off and like come to bed. And at that point, I was like immobile. She's like telling me to take my pants off and I couldn't even do that. I was so exhausted. I was so just like out of it. Like I couldn't even move. I couldn't take my shoes off, couldn't take my pants off. Thankfully, Dan had come in right at that time and he helped me get everything off to be able to move to the bed. And I got in bed and immediately this nurse pushed an emergency button. Another nurse runs in and was like, you pinged the emergency button? She's like, it's an emergency. 4 or 5 nurses like come running in. The on-call resident doctor comes running in. Dan's like, what's going on? Like, how far are we? The nurse was like, the baby is here. Like, the baby's coming now. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? They're telling me like baby's coming. I have one nurse on the left side trying to put in an IV. A nurse on the right side, like, what are you doing? We don't have time for an IV. Like, why are you doing that? Another nurse is like yelling at me to push. Another nurse is like trying to pull my legs back to like my chest. I didn't think that was possible. I was like, I can't do it. I can't move. I can't move. So I have one nurse like trying to move one side. Dan's trying to move the other. They're like, all right, you need to push. You need to do, you know, chin to chest. Hold it as long as you can. When I tell you, you do it and don't stop until I tell you to stop. Meanwhile, Dan's like on the other side telling me, don't listen to them. You push when you feel like you have the urge to push. Like, don't go longer than you feel you need to. Because we had learned in that class, like pushing when your body isn't trying to tell you to push can cause really bad tearing. And so Dan was trying to like coach me, the nurses are trying to coach me, and I just like, so the first contraction, I didn't know, like the first contraction came, the nurse was like, all right, now. So I like did kind of what I thought I was doing at home, like pushed, but didn't really know. It was the first push and I was able to push for 7 seconds. I say push because now that like I had a few more after that, I know that wasn't even really pushing. So the second time the nurse was like, you got to do something different, like hold your breath, like barrel down and like do it. And so, okay, I had a little different picture in my mind this time. I did a push, 7 seconds again, and I could feel like, oh, okay, this is what a push is. Like, this is how you do it. Cause I felt baby move down and I was like, okay, this is insane. Like I can feel baby. So then one more push, 9 seconds, and little Isabel Suzanne entered the world. Like, it was so extremely fast. That was 8:17. We got to the hospital. Dan put me in the wheelchair at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, almost on the dot. And I had baby in my arms, on my chest, by 8:17. So, me waiting in the lobby, me checking in, me trying to go to the bathroom, like all that happened in under 20 minutes. Like, it was so extremely fast. Like, I remember they were telling me to push, they were telling me to do these things. Another nurse is asking me intake questions. I was answering them, but trying to put, like, it was just insanity. Like, had no idea. Like, I would not cut it that close to the hospital again had I known what was going on. Like, I just had no idea. I was a first-time mom. Had no clue. But anyway, Isabel's sweet Suzanne was on my chest. She came out 8:17. She was 6 pounds, 7 ounces, and 19.75 inches long. Like, the sweetest little bundle. And it is just such an amazingly weird feeling to have your firstborn put on your chest. I guess, like, it was so amazing. But it was quickly ruined, I guess I should say, because immediately the doctors went to cut the cord. And Dan was like, no. Like, we want to delay cord clamping because we had learned in that class, like if you delay it until it stops pulsating, they get a year's worth of iron in their body. Like, it's really, really, really beneficial to keep blood, flowing through into their body to make sure they get their proper amount of blood. And they just were like, your baby might explode. You have to cut it now. And we were like, no, we don't. Like, we can delay it like 3 minutes. It's going to be fine. Like we had learned. And just, it was a very weird thing to have to push back on that, I guess. And I really didn't like that. Then another nurse yelled like, let's push the Pitocin. And I was like, stop, stop, stop. Why are we pushing Pitocin? They're like, well, you could bleed out. I was like, am I bleeding out? They were like, no. I was like, well, can we wait till there's a sign of concern before we push it? The nurse like stopped and was like, can everybody stop and make sure that everybody acknowledges that she's declining a potentially life-saving drug? I was like, yes, we can acknowledge that, but unless I start bleeding out, can we please hold off? So, I don't know. It was just very not good. So then I was like sitting there, like trying to figure out breastfeeding, like, that first couple minutes and baby wants to nurse. And another nurse who was doing the intake questions when I was pushing that I like could barely answer, I remember her starting the questions over again, like as I'm trying to nurse. And I was like, I don't know, trying to answer them. And I guess one of my answers, the answer on when did your water break? I didn't know when my water broke. Honestly, I had no clue. It did not break early in the day, it didn't break. I think it broke right before we left for the hospital when I thought I had to poop. I think that's when it broke. So I was like, I don't know. I think it must have been about 7:40. And she was like, 7:40? That's not what you said 10 minutes ago. Why did you lie? I was like, I didn't lie. It was just the reaction from the nurses I hated. And in that moment, I was like, I never want to have another hospital birth again. I felt like I was evil. I felt like I was doing everything wrong. I felt like they made me feel so horrible. And I really, really hated my hospital experience because of that. And I'm sure it had something to do with how fast everything went. They're probably not used to that, I guess. I don't know. But it was just really not calming for me as a mother, and it was not a great experience in the hospital. But anyway, we asked to see the placenta after that delivered. That was cool. We then went to, our actual room out of labor and delivery. And then they told me, don't swaddle your baby, put it in a diaper, like whatever. And so I remember like getting up to change Isabel's first diaper. And I came back, and then like when I got back in bed, a nurse came back like an hour later maybe to check things out, checked the baby's diaper, and was like, did you change the diaper? I was like, well, yeah. And she was like, well, what'd you do with the diaper? I was like, well, I threw it away. She was like, why did you do that? We needed to test it for the talk screen. I was like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. She was like, well, let's hope you had enough pee to test, but you didn't really pee. And so it ended up being this whole thing, like because I didn't pee upon arrival for the talk screen and the drug test, I guess. They were gonna check it through baby, but then I threw away the baby's diaper. So then this whole thing, thankfully it turned out like I did have like a tiny bit in the toilet that they were able to test, I guess. But that was just like another thing. And then I was actually group B positive when I, was 30 whatever weeks when they test. And so I was supposed to get antibiotics through labor and delivery. But I didn't make it to the hospital in time, so I wasn't able. So I ended up having to stay in the hospital an extra day just to make sure everything was okay with baby, which that was fine. But of course, that just meant them waking me up more in the middle of the night to give me pain meds or to check my vitals or whatever it was. And I didn't like that either. Like, you're already, like, we spent most of the day just looking at the baby, and then we already were sleeping with one eye open and just like watching this little newborn getting up to try to nurse and all those things. And then when you finally fall asleep, they come in and wake you up. It was just like, I just hated it. I hated being in the hospital. But all in all, like, we had a beautiful, healthy baby girl, and what more can you ask for? So even though it did not go anything like I pictured, it was still just like the most amazing experience. And I was able to have a natural, unmedicated birth, which was like what my goal was. So I was really happy about that. And at the end of the day, I got to take home a sweet, sweet baby. And it was just the most precious thing. And it was great. And so I guess, I don't know, that's my story. That's how, Isabel came into this world 4 years ago. And I've made different decisions now for my other children, and I will post different videos for my second birth, which was a home birth, and obviously I will tell this story when this one comes. That's my story. Isabel came so quickly, it seemed, because when things got hard, it was just like so quick. It was like within the span of 2 hours. And yeah, it was just like a little crazy, but just so awesome at the same time. So if you have experienced anything like this, let me know in the comments below. Let me know like how your birth was and what kind of birth you prefer, because I know it's not everyone prefers that. Some people are like, schedule me, it'll be great. Induce me, it'll be great. Sign me up for the epidural, and that's totally fine. Like, no matter what way you birth or what way you hope to birth, like, they're all okay. Like, everyone just has their own preference on what they want, and each preference is fine. And so if you have a different preference than me, then that's totally fine, and I'd love to hear your story too. So yeah, drop it in the comments below, and stay tuned. In a couple weeks, I will post my story of little Miss Juliana Joanne and how she was born over the next couple weeks. So I will catch you guys in the next video. So excited to meet this one pretty soon, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.